Okay, so the self-direction lounge, the idea is it's kind of playing around with the vocabulary of self-direction within the context of post-Fordism. So that being the sort of shift from, the Fordist era, which is all about the factory, industrial labour, the kind of hierarchically organised office space, the boss you hate, all that kind of stuff. And then you have the kind of post-Fordist era, which is, about flexibility and creates a very different kind of set of working conditions. And the idea of the self-direction lounge is that, it's really sort of focusing on this vocabulary of self-direction. So the idea of the self as entrepreneur. And kind of what I'm interested in is there's a sort of shift that happened with the sort of student protests in May '68, which is sort of seen as being paradigmatic by many thinkers. You had this sort of cry for freedom, this sort of desire to kind of break down hierarchical institutional structures. And this is kind of a desire to kind of reorganize everything from, the family to church to, and one of the main spaces that was sort of in need of reorganization was work and the kind of relationship between work and life. And then kind of what you end up with kind of by the 90s is this sort of like adoption within kind of management discourse. You get this kind of adoption of the whole vocabulary of revolution and the vocabulary of freedom and sort of, and sort of the beginning of this identity of the kind of self as entrepreneur. And in these kind of working environments, like on the surface, you have this sort of illusion of freedom. The boss doesn't tell you off if you're late anymore. But on the other hand, it's a sort of shift where the authority is now installed inside your head. So it's the feeling that this new kind of working environment is a kind of gilded cage where everything, the office environment kind of looks fun. Kind of work and play no longer seem to be opposites. But play is somehow integrated into the workplace. And everything kind of looks like fun, but actually it's a sort of colonization of your inner world, where your inner world becomes instrumentalized. And all your social relationships become instrumentalized. Like, you no longer hang out with your friends just for fun. You have meetings, or you're networking, you're engaged in productive activity. So it's this sort of idea that the sort of post-Fordist working conditions are a sort of instrumentalization of every single kind of corner of your waking and sleeping life, where every sort of moment of your life becomes productive. The idea is really that these are spaces that people can use, that when you enter the piece you become the performer. Now you're on the stage, you're in the set, you're the one who's inhabiting the space, and on the level that, kind of when people actually start to use the space, really, in a sense, they become kind of unpaid performers, like you become a kind of volunteer in the gallery, whether you know it or not. You're sort of working for the piece, you're working for the institution.